Hi, if you don't already know, my name is Sage. I live in this 2006 Honda Element with my dog Kopek here. We've been living in this Element for a grand total of about a year. I've wanted for a while to do sort of a questions and answers video because I get a lot of questions coming through on Instagram. So about a week ago I put on Instagram and on Facebook and on YouTube, just ask me any questions that you have about kind of this lifestyle, living in an Element, living in Bend, Oregon. Got a lot of good responses, but I realized from the responses that I probably need to break it into two videos. The first video will be frequently asked questions, ones that are kind of recurring that I hear more than once, and then the other one will just be questions and answers from the set that you guys responded to on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So since these questions are frequently asked, there are probably a lot of people looking for answers to these sorts of questions, so I've put each question in the description below, and I put a timestamp on it so you can skip right to that question. So maybe you want to pause the video right now and take a look at the questions in the description and see if there's one in particular that you like. But if not, just listen all the way through. All right, let's get into it. The first question is, why did you decide to live in a car? I never had the intention of doing this full time. When I first set out, I wanted to go on sort of an extended traveling road trip that was gonna last between 6 months and a year. And I've got my dog, and so kind of the easiest way to do that was to build my Honda Element out into a camper. And I did. I lived in it for 6 months traveling around, and when I finished traveling, I realized how much I really liked it, and have kind of since been planning to do it again. And then I moved back into it about 5 months ago. Next question, this is probably the number one question that I get asked. How do you shower? How do you bathe? And this is probably the most common response you'll see from people who are living in their car. I have a gym membership to Planet Fitness, and it's like 15 bucks a month, and I can go and shower there as often as I need to. Kind of a follow-up to that, I usually shower around 2 to 3 times a week. Showering, when you have a gym membership, showering becomes a little bit more of an ordeal, and so it takes a little bit longer. So I only shower when I'm like feeling dirty now, whereas before I would shower every single morning. Next question is, where do you go to the bathroom? So basically the simple answer is wherever I can. So a lot of times that's like McDonald's or grocery stores or coffee shops, and other public restrooms. And then during warmer weather, when I camp out more fully in the forest and in the woods, I just use the forest as my bathroom. But then kind of the approach to it is that you go to the bathroom when you can, not when you have to, but when you can. So if you're at a coffee shop getting coffee, you go there whether you have to go or not, just so that you don't have to go later. Question number 4, how do you make money? I was previously traveling around full time, and during that time I was not making money. I was slowly kind of working through some savings and using those up. Now that I'm back in the car and live in Bend, Oregon, I have a couple part-time jobs. So I do bartending at a bar restaurant in town, and then I also do some camera grip and sound work for a video production company here in Bend, Oregon, a local company, with some friends of mine. Next question, what do you do with your dog while you're out or while you're at work? Basically, she stays in the car. At this time of year, she's totally comfortable in here. She's probably happiest in here. As long as the weather isn't too hot, which is definitely not right now, it's, if anything, too cold, she can stay in the car. Usually this is a bed that goes all the way across, and she has a lot of space to hang out. I used to feel a little bit bad about leaving her in the car, and then I realized there are people that crate train their dogs, and their dog is stuck in a tiny cage, and compared to that, she has luxury here. She's got a water bowl right here. She's got a massive bed with blankets and everything, and she actually really likes and is really comfortable in the car. She'll hop right up anytime. She doesn't ever seem like she is not looking forward to getting in the car. So and then in the summer months when it gets hotter, there are a few doggy daycare places in town that I can take her to, and then I have a handful of friends in town now who love Kopek and have offered to watch her if I ever need it. I'm slowly kind of developing the resources that enable me to live more functionally in a car with a dog. Next question, how do you keep your phone and laptop charged? And I'll just add to that my camera batteries, drone batteries, any flashlight, that kind of stuff. I have just right here, actually below the laptop, I have a Goal Zero Yeti 1000, and up top I have a 160 watt Renogy solar panel. It's a super simple setup. It's a little on the pricey side, but I got a good deal on the Goal Zero. But it just plugs, it's a very easy like plug and play system, and the Goal Zero has 4 USB ports, a couple 120 volt. I don't have a lot of power needs, and between the two of those, it's more than enough. Next question, one pertinent to right now. This one was asked, it's asked often, but it was asked by Unbreakable Taylor on Instagram. How do you stay warm when it's really cold out? I probably do a little bit less than most people living in a car when it comes to staying warm. I basically, like when I'm looking for a spot to go park for the night, I just run my heater full blast the whole time I'm looking for a spot, and then and that's it. And it heats up, because it's such a small space, it heats up the car pretty well. And then I have, it's in the front seat right now, but usually on this bed I have this -25-degree sleeping bag that's extra long and extra wide, so both Kopek and I can crawl in comfortably. In the mornings are actually probably the hardest part, but I've gotten into a routine of warming up my car before I get going for the day, and I just run the heater full blast again for about 15 minutes before I actually get going, and that gets the car warm enough for me to like want to actually get out of my sleeping bag, or to be able to get out of my sleeping bag without being miserable. I would say so far I haven't really been super cold. Like I said, the mornings are cold, but in general I haven't been super cold, and we've gotten down into the single digits a couple times here, and I've survived pretty well, I would say. This next question I could probably do a whole video about, and maybe eventually I will, but we'll go quickly through it. The question is, where do you park to sleep? Do you have any tips on stealth camping in cities? And Trip Rover from Instagram asked this question. I think kind of I've developed sort of a system of finding places to sleep in the cities. During the summer I go out into the national forest. There's lots of free dispersed camping out there, so I use that. But now that those roads are closed and I'm kind of forced into the city, so I have a few sort of techniques that I use to find a spot. But kind of the general rule of thumb is to find a spot that is like appropriately crowded. I don't want to get into a neighborhood where there's 0 cars on the street and I'm the only one, because then I stand out like a sore thumb. And I also don't want a neighborhood that's so packed that it's hard to find a spot, or that it's hard to get into a spot, or there are too many cars coming and going and it's too noisy at night. So that's kind of my general rule of thumb. And I also I want to make sure that I'm having as little impact on the area that I'm parking as possible, so I don't get there and just hang out and make a lot of noise. I get in, I pretty much close up shop, go to bed, or just read or do something that's quiet and not gonna be heard all over the neighborhood. And then the final question is, what does your family think about you living in a car? I feel very fortunate that I've had a very supportive family throughout this whole thing. When I first moved into my car, I think my dad and my mom had a few minor concerns, like about safety, about money, that kind of stuff, things that good parents worry about for their kids. But for the most part, they support it. My mom actually really likes the fact that I'm living sort of an alternative lifestyle and doing something that's outside the norm. And my dad is a bit of a hippie, and you know, I think if he was young and single, he would probably do a pretty similar thing and live out of a car and travel or something like that. My siblings are also pretty supportive of it. My older sister and her husband have been living in a van for over a year now as well. My brother has talked in the past about converting a school bus. So there's a little bit of it in the family, and so I get a lot of really good support. I think my family trusts that I'm gonna be okay no matter what I'm doing, whether that's living in a vehicle or living in a normal apartment. So yeah, so that's some frequently asked questions that I get, things that people wonder about living in a car in general. As I mentioned before, I'm gonna be doing a question and answer video. I got a lot of really good questions, really thoughtful questions, and so keep an eye out for that video as well. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon.